Namaskar. You'll now watch Dr. Subramanian Swamy in a panel discussion held at Welingkar College, Mumbai.
NCA after that, right?
Non-corrupt.
I will devote my 20 minutes to in three parts. First, I will speak about what we have to learn from our own past history. Second is what are the strengths and weaknesses we should know about. And finally, how do we organize a governance system to achieve these goals to make India a truly global power. Well, India was once upon a time the leading global power. If you read books of 1,000 years ago, written by visitors like, and before that also, even before 1,000 years, we had visitors from China, Fascian, and 1,000 years ago we had from Yuan Chang, and then we had Vasco da Gama, right up to Mark Twain. So I would say that if you read these, you will see what glowing terms we have been described as. So therefore, what comes out very clearly from our study of our past is that we were a great economic power. Such a great economic power that everybody was coming here to buy things. But we also had a tremendous, what is called a soft power. If you go to Southeast Asia, you go to China too. In fact, in 1936, Harvard University celebrated its 300th year anniversary. And for that tricentennial, they invited scholars from all over the world. And they invited the president of Beijing University, a very famous poet called Dr. Hu. And they told them all, please speak on a subject that's dear to your heart. And Dr. Hu spoke, and the title of his talk was The Indianization of China, a Case of Cultural Borrowing, which Harvard has reproduced in its tricentennial volumes. So very few people read it. Unfortunately, it should be a prescribed article for people. I have tried to use it in some of my books. But from that, what comes out is that India's intellectual power, which we call as soft power, that all our concepts were accepted. We didn't invade any country at all. But our ideas permeated throughout the world. I would say that our science went much before the Industrial Revolution to Europe. People took benefit of that. But we lost all that. And slowly we began declining. And of course, we can blame the people who came from abroad, who looted this country, conquered this country, ruled this country for centuries. But the fact of the matter is that we have to analyze why they were able to do it. When you have such a mighty power, economically, in terms of ideas, how is it that you were for 1,000 years on one form of attack or another? When I look back, and this is one of the things that we have to learn, and that is that we were too civilized in dealing with rules of warfare and so on. For instance, we had the rules of warfare for many, but one of them was that you won't start the fight before the sun rises, and when the sun sets, you will go back to your tent and go to sleep, and come back the next day. That was the rule of warfare. The second was that you will not fight in the cities, you will not fight in the population centers, you will not fight in the agricultural fields, but you will fight in open Maidans. So you have Mahabharata in Kurukshetra was in open Maidan. When Ravan had to combat Ram, he didn't tell him to come inside his fortress, try to get in, but he himself came out in the open Maidan So that was the other thing, minimal civilian damage. And the third is that if you lose the war and you apologize, everything is returned to you and you're sent away. And so Prithviraj Chauhan sent away Mohammad Ghori, God knows how many times, and say 16 times, so on. That was stupid, you should have only sent him back twice. Third time you should have finished him off. But anyway, this was a civilized behavior we adopted throughout. This was not suitable to those who came. So we have to learn. Since 1947, we have not been civilized in our interactions. We have been stupid. And that's why I was surprised when in the introduction he said Jawaharlal Nehru put us on the world map. Will anyone put us down? Tried to, and that also I doubt. I think perhaps the only one person he tried to impress was Edwina Mountbatten. For example, the United States in 1949 end offered you, and this is now documented by the declassified material, offered you the Chinese seat on the Security Council. Because China had become communist, they threw him out. And they offered it to India. And what do you think Jawaharlal Nehru said? He was trying to put us on the world map. This is China's seat. I cannot take it. And then you see, every General Assembly session, India was pleading for China. Even in 1963, we pleaded for China. After the 62 war, this is China's seat. In 1956, Bulgarin and Khrushchev came here. They said, okay, we'll create one more seat for you and China both. Even then, Jawaharlal Nehru said, no, first China must occupy the seat. Now, I will call this civilized. I will call it plain stupid. That a seat is offered to you of the UN Security Council by the United States. We don't. The second stupid thing we did was to adopt the Soviet model. The Soviet model was totally unsuited to India because the Soviet model was based on the premise that you would squeeze agriculture and use that funds for building heavy industries, and that there will be no exports and imports as a strategy. All this was unsuited for us. First of all, the British had bled Indian agriculture to such a point that it required a lot of infusion of capital. We are the cheapest producer of agricultural products even today. Our milk, for example, is 1/15 what is sold in Europe. We have 150 million cows. They give an average of about 200 liters per year. An average Israeli cow gives 11,000 liters per year. Now imagine if our 150 million cows started giving the Israeli average, I will have to come to this place swimming in milk. Yield per acres in India is one of the lowest in the world. God has given you capacity to have agriculture 12 months of the year. In the United States, 7 months or 5 months at least, you can't do any agriculture because there's so much snow. Same thing with Europe, same thing with China. But this potential has not been utilized because we chose the wrong strategy. And we fell for the propaganda. I remember the great Marxist leader, Namuddin Paz, told me once in a seminar, do you know that there is no inflation in the Soviet Union? There is no unemployment in Soviet Union. There is no poverty in Soviet Union. Some years later, I met him after August 1991. I said, there's a fourth quality also. There is no Soviet Union anymore. It's in 16 countries today. Where the Soviet model worked. You want a laboratory experiment? See Germany. One country till 1945. One people, one history. Divided into two. East Germany, West Germany. West Germany adopted market and democracy. And East Germany adopted dictatorship and Soviet model. See the difference even today between the developments of these two countries. North Korea, South Korea. China before economic reform, China after economic reform. India before economic reform, after economic reform. And what these leftist intellectuals told us, this is the Hindu rate of growth in the Soviet model. That's the communist rate of growth. That's all you got all over the world. And after economic reform, we have reached 7%, 9%. So that because it depends on the mindset. I'm coming to Rajiv Malhotra's point about the identity. You have 1,000 goats and 1 tiger. Who has majority? The goats have the majority. But who will run from the scene? It will be the goats who will run from the scene. So therefore, it's not that they don't plan. Even strength doesn't matter without mindset. You have 5 lions in a cage in a circus. And there's a thin, wiry ringmaster. He'll go inside the cage and he'll order them, climb up. Each one of those lions is strong enough that with their paw they can knock him out, finish him off. But they all obey, they all climb up. We Indians today are like either goats or circus lions. We need a new mindset. And that is what Malhotra has been devoting his life to. He has a very cushy job and went into this. And he has brought a mighty change through using the same idiom that the people who have systematically brainwashed us have done. So let me first say that our strength is what? We have a population which is young. The average age of an Indian population, of India's population, is 28 years. The average age of the Chinese population is 37. The average age of the American population is 38. The average age of the Japanese is 49. Of Europe is 48. It's a young population. Everybody knows that economic growth is fueled by innovations. And innovations, the young people who come out of universities are the people who do the innovations. This is the crowd that we should focus on. That means you need world-class academic institutions. And that should be the focus, where we encourage people to start educational institutions and maintain a standard. This is our strength. The second strength is our agriculture, the cheapest agriculture in the world. We can export grain, fruits, vegetables, flowers, milk to the whole world. Let them in Doha rounds remove all these subsidies that they give to their own people. Our agriculture will triumph all over the world. No use talking about giving subsidies to our farmers. You empower them to export. Build every district you build a field. Cold storages, export capacity. So this is the kind of development. This is your second great advantage. First is your population. Second is agriculture. But we were taught that these are your liabilities. But for the emergency and the people's revolt against the emergency, we would have done what everybody was praising the Chinese for doing, namely a 1 child per family. It's the revolt of the Indian people which made them give up this coercive methods. So this is the second. And finally, I would say we have demonstrated already our capacity, because we have a tradition to innovate. Today, software, SEI, CMM gradation 1 to 5, we have more than 36 companies with grade 5, which is the best quality software. The United States has only 15 such companies. Chinese have only 1 such company. Who wins the Deming Prize every year in Japan for automobile ancillaries? India, consistently. I mean, where the people are allowed to do their thing, if the government gets out of the way, we perform. Indians today's per capita income in the United States is the highest of all communities in America, including white communities. So therefore, this is another asset. Not only we have a young population, which means that many of your problems which Europe is facing will go away, will not be there for us for a long time, such as this pension bomb and so on, but we have a native capacity. But this requires a new mindset, such as taking risk. Indians don't take risk. I teach every summer at Harvard. At the end of class, I ask my students, what kind of career would you like? A career where you enter the labor force, you get an increment every year in your salary. At the age of 60, you get provident fund, and then you go relax. Live a retired life. Or do you want something where you try something of your own? You may fall flat on your face and lose everything, or you may become a billionaire. The American students in my class used to ask me, what's the probability of the second possibility? But 99% of the Indian students in my class used to say, no, I will like the first possibility. You want to, this is guaranteed poverty, is that what you want? They said, yes, at least it's guaranteed, that's what is important. This search for stability is one of the biggest debilitating factors in this country. Must become risk, leave this being risk averse, become risk friendly, take risks in your life. That kind of mentality has to come. I don't want to repeat what Vadra said about identity. I think it's a very, very important concept. We are Indians means what? Because we got a passport? That's not in India. If we say we are Indian because of our great civilization, which civilization? Because we have had a very long period of Hindu civilization. After that, what did we have? How do we accommodate Muslims and Christians in the part of the identity? Unfortunately, modern science has given us a way. The DNA analysis shows that we are all the same. All Indians are the same. We have not come from anywhere else. All this talk about Aryan, Dravidians, all bogus. Anyway, the word Aryan doesn't exist in our scriptures. It's only Arya. Arya means gentleman. In Tamil we say Ayya. Dravidian is a concept which Adi Shankara invented when he went to Varanasi to debate Mandana Mishra. They asked him, who are you? He said, I'm Dravida Shishu. He explained that the word Dravida is a sandhi of Pura and Vid, essentially meaning where the three coastlines of the three oceans meet, is South India. And unfortunately, the British brainwashed a section. They formed a Dravidian movement, which Mr. Karnanidhi today is the specimen. And he has been rubbishing everything that is Hindu. Except that now I'm told that his daughter is doing bhajans inside the TRP. That's poetic justice, no? Once I was arguing against the taking of the Ram Setu in the Supreme Court case, because I won. And Karnanidhi got pretty upset. He said publicly, how can Swamy say that this is Ram Setu? Did Ram build it? Which engineering college did he go to? Where did he get his degree from? Next day he fell ill. He was admitted to Ramchandra Medical Hospital. I wrote him a letter. At least he's got an MBBS, if not an engineer. So this rubbishing, this splitting, this identity must go. We are Hindus, or we are those who have descended from Hindus. That's what the DNA says. If the Muslims and Christians probably accept this, then we will become a genuine identity of a Hindustani. That's what is required. I wrote this in an article in DNA. They're trying to chase me to send me to jail, but they're not being successful. But I love to go argue in a court. They don't want me to argue in a court, so just make noise and leave it at that. Second thing is we need the correct history of India. What is the correct history of India? When I go around speaking to young audiences around the country, they ask me, if our Sanatan Dharma was so good, how is it that we were beaten? How do you say we were beaten? Iran was a nation of Zoroastrians. Islam invaded Iran. In 15 years, they made them 100% Muslim. Next was Babylon and Mesopotamia, which is now called Iraq. In 17 years, they made them 100% Muslim. Egypt was in 21 years. Europe was made Christian 100% in 50 years. But here we had 800 years of Muslim rule and 200 years of Christian rule via the British, and you are still 83%. This is being studied in Saudi Arabia. That's how it first struck me. In Saudi Arabia, they are studying why. And that's why Osama bin Laden said India is an incomplete chapter of Islamic history. So, therefore, you need to teach your history properly. How many people fought? People were ready to eat, kings were ready to eat grass. Rana Pratap is an example. So, throughout the history, we have had every part of India in a state of revolt. Till finally, in the late 19th century, spiritual leaders, sadhus, sannyasis, people like Bankim Chatterjee, they all gave a new concept to India's identity. So I would place the development of a single Indian identity, which connects you to the past. You can't have an identity that I got my Indian passport, therefore I'm Indian. Or I wear sari and bindi, therefore I'm an Indian, or I'm Indianized. Somebody told me that you're so critical of Sonia Gandhi, at least she wears a sari at the time. As I have learned from Ramayana, that when Ravan came to kidnap Sita, he came dressed in Bhagwa Kapra. Not only fooled by somebody's dress. It's a question of what you accept. Those who accept the entire Indian civilization and history, they have to. And this civilization history is the one that can make you happy. Materialism, the West practice is not making people happy. Otherwise, why is there so many foreigners in Sri Sri Ravi Shankar's or Baba Ramdev's ashram or Swami Dayanand Saraswati's ashram? So many. I also have this problem because when I go to America to teach, they see in the telephone directory my name is Subramanian Swamy, so they think I must be some kind of sadhu. Yeah, Bhagavad. They're learning yoga, they are now learning Sanskrit because Sanskrit is considered a computer-friendly language for artificial intelligence. This is a huge, tremendous tradition which you have to own up. And both Christians and Muslims can own it up by just acknowledging what is the truth, that they are descended from Hindus. We are a nation of Hindus, or those others who openly acknowledge that they are descended from Hindus. Correct history, if there's one thing that you need to do to really unite India, is to learn Sanskrit. And I would say that any government which wanted to build an identity for Indians, they must make Sanskrit compulsory. Every Indian language has large proportion of words which are from Sanskrit. Tamil itself has 42% of its words are from Sanskrit. And so there also I had a quarrel with Karunanidhi. I said, what is your name? It is Karunanidhi. This is not a Tamil name. This is a Sanskrit name. So Sanskrit is the uniting factor. So that's another thing that we must learn. And most of all, we must as a nation now begin to retaliate when we are attacked. If we are attacked covertly, we must attack, if necessary, overtly. Because the city of Bombay has been brutalized twice. We have not retaliated. We have to retaliate, and that mental state must come. When our civilization is threatened, we will retaliate. That old Prithviraj Chauhan saying, okay, Prithviraj Chauhan at least defeated the person and then forgave him. Here, without even being defeating that person, you are ready to forgive. No, Shanti, Shanti. This Sattvic Hindutva is not what I want. I want Rajasic Hindutva, where you retaliate. Then only the nation can rise. So we must now rise above all our divisions. Hindus also divided into this Varna. And this Varna is never connected with birth. If you are born in a Brahmin family, it doesn't mean you automatically become a Brahmin. The Rishis had said very clearly it's a decentralization of power. Rishi Bhrigu had said that there are 4 sources of power: knowledge, weapons, wealth, and land. And he said that no one person should have more than one of this. And those who practice this, that if you have knowledge, you will not have weapons, you will not have land, you will not have wealth. But it will be the highest. That's why the Americans, in the early days when I went first as a student, they could never understand how we Indians follow Mahatma Gandhi, who was half naked. In fact, Winston Churchill used to call him a naked fakir. The concept of sacrifice is an integral part of our life. But see all the great rishis, but they were born in Brahmin families. Veda Vyasa, who wrote the Mahabharata, his mother was a fisherwoman. Kalidasa was a hunter. He came from a family of hunters. Vishwamitra was called the Rishi of Rishis. His parents were Kshatriyas. Similarly, Valmiki is considered to be born in a Dalit family. Ravan was a Brahmin. Very few people know that. In fact, Karunanidhi used to celebrate Ravan Leela to spite Ram Leela. Till later on he found out that Ravan was a Brahmin. And he gave it up. So there is this concept of birth. So that I don't think that we can now reform the caste system. I think the time has come for us to consciously try and disband it. The process of disbanding this caste system and regarding ourselves as an Indian and nothing but an Indian, that time has come. Then only we can be truly a great country. And if we vote accordingly, you will get a government which will be responsible for this. Today we condemn some politicians for being appeasers. Let me tell you, appeasement is politically profitable. The day it ceases to be politically profitable, these same very politicians will change. The responsibility is ours to think like an Indian, which means either a Hindu or someone who is ready to acknowledge that his ancestors are Hindu. That Indian is free from all other parochial attachments and make India once again a great country. Thank you.
Pakistan. But in India's supreme economic interest, we need to have economic relations with China. But as far as security is concerned, we need to be wary and circumspect with China because China has been having has unabated territorial hegemony in conquering Arunachal Pradesh and several territorial parts of India. So what is your take on that?
Brief. The request for
I'm done with my question.
Request for everyone, please avoid making speeches. Make
done with my
specific questions, please. Thanks.
Question should be only 1 line or 2 lines.
Well, I think the long and short of it is that you want to know what we do about China, right? Well, you see, there is no such thing as a country you can trust. The United States, with whom we want to be friends, in 1971, they sent the 7th Fleet Task Force into the Bay of Bengal. And you know that there were nuclear weapons on board. So the question of United States is not that it's going to be friendly, it's a question of the United States' interests. No country should ever deal with another country in the terms of sentiment. If China has capacity to harm you, you should acquire capacity to harm them. Doesn't mean you have to use the capacity, but you have the capacity. China has certain weaknesses, we should recognize that. It has a very long supply line to the borders of India. Therefore, you should be developing the Air Force and the missile strike that in the event of a war, you knock off those supply lines. China has a neighbor like Pakistan, which is totally loyal to China. We should respond by developing a naval base in Car Nicobar in alliance with Indonesia, because 90% of the Chinese foreign trade passes through ships through the Malacca Strait. If you are able to control the Malacca Strait, you can suffocate China anytime you want. So I think to some extent Mr. Manmohan Singh is trying that when he is moved to South China Sea, and you see how the Chinese are reacting. So that's the way to deal with it. The foolishness was of Jawaharlal Nehru was to abandon your defense preparations because you thought the Chinese are your brothers. And when the Chinese turned around, you were defenseless. So this is the way, even with the United States, we have to look at the United States' interests. We cannot become another Australia or Japan. We have to be an equal partner with the United States, so we may have disagreements with that, we may have agreements with them. But there are some common objectives, such as terrorism. That's why I say Israel, India and China Israel, India and the United States should bond together as strategic allies as far as terrorism concerns, which is the #1 point. So, should we try to befriend China? Yes. But not with our eyes closed. Not by wearing our heart on the sleeve, but with full preparation that the event of a war, we should be able to give China a reply. But if it's possible to have give and take to China, then we must engage in that without sacrificing our basic national interests. I have been to China many times. They regard me as a friend, but I have told them that you reject the McMahon line because you say it's an imperialist line. But you have accepted it with Burma. Burma, they have signed an agreement where they specifically said that the McMahon line will be the border between Burma and China. So how can you raise this argument with us? I was also able to persuade them to open the route to Kailash Mansarovar, which many governments tried and failed. I think that what we should work towards is globally is a trilateral combination: United States, China, and India. We have the 3 most populous countries. We have the 3 largest GNPs, and I think with the 3 of us, through the process of give and take, without sacrificing the fundamentals, should try to get together.
Okay, there is a question that has come in on SMS
for Dr. Swamy. In what way do you think Hindutva will benefit the process of globalization with one Indian attributes? Do you think we'll be able to sustain our relations with the rest of the world by aggressively propagating a single faith?
Hindutva is not a faith, it's a Hindu-ness. It's a quality. It's not a religion. And that's why, if you really see the kinds of concepts I'm talking about, Mahatma Gandhi propagated. Many Muslim intellectuals got annoyed with me when I said that you must acknowledge that your ancestors are Hindus. Well, Jawaharlal Nehru, when he gave his convocation address to the Aligarh Muslim University in 1948, what did he say? He said, I am a Hindu, you are a Muslim, but both our ancestors are the same. We derive our sustenance from the great Hindu tradition of India. I am happy to see that the Sufis who constitute a very large proportion of Muslim population, they held a rally recently and they said, India is our country because we are 98% from Hindus. So, therefore, when I am talking about Hindutva, I am talking about Hindu values. Values where in the question of bonding between father and son, mother and daughter, husband and wife, kinds of things that we have, these are called cultural things. And Muslims and Christians and Hindus, they share that culture. What is the international? Internationally, they are all taking to Hindutva. The richest Hollywood actress, Julia Roberts, not only took to Hindutva, she also converted to Hinduism. The man who gave you iPad, Stephen Jobs, was a vagabond till he came to Varanasi to Neem Karoli Baba's ashram, and he adopted the Hindu practices. And even in his general bodies, he would do Namaste, you should sit cross-legged. And the kinds of things he preached was Hindu concepts. What is the Hindu concept? The Hindu concept is that you only have freedom of action, but the reward of your action will come to you, but in what form, where, you can't say. You may do very good work and get a very good job, but a very bad wife. Or you may get a very bad job and a very good wife. That kind of balancing will take place. And I mean, it is not a gender oriented comment, I'll say the same thing for women also. So, I think we must understand, that's why the Supreme Court said in 1996, Hindutva is not against the Constitution of India. And that's how Manoj Joshi escaped, yes. So, we need not be defensive. This Hindutva is being accepted all over the world today. Even on globalization, there's a book, I forget the name of the author, just come out, I saw it, you can Google it. Ancient Hindu Values for Globalization. So, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, Aham Nija Parveti, Ganana Lagu Chetasam, Udar Charitanam Achu, Cha, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. That means, don't think of this as mine and this as yours and all these petty things, Lagu Chetasam, as they say. Think of the whole world as belonging to you. That means the perspective that we have, and I am not at all defensive about Hindutva. I don't think any Muslim and Christian should be defensive about Hindutva.
Second question from the audience.
One part which opens up for markets, you have factories setting up shop here, everyone wanted to come to India, and the second one ma'am spoke about, the agricultural side. So do you see a potential imbalance between these two Indias? Would you acknowledge it, and how do you see it shaping up in the near future?
No, I don't see any. We can modernize our agriculture, for which we need an industrial base. But I think we don't have to produce everything like the Soviet model wanted us to do. We should go by the normal laws of economics. There are many things we can do which, for instance, if you want to knock out China, I'll give you one easy formula. The entire Chinese economic growth has been propelled by exports to Europe and the United States. And how do these exports, how are they created? I mean, these goods for exports, semi-processed goods from East Asia go to China, and there they value added. Take this Lenovo. Lenovo is not a Chinese laptop. It's actually a Taiwan laptop. But the Chinese add value to it. And then they export it. So China has a deficit of trade with East Asia and a surplus of trade with Europe and the United States. Ask these East Asian countries, you divert that from India. We have a cheaper labor force. We have got a court system. Our intellectual property rights are better. All that, but the East Asian countries will say, you've got terrible infrastructure. That is why we can't come. There's hassle everywhere. There's octroi. Then they are, maybe in the center you've got economic reform, but in the states you're still living in the past. And if you want to buy land, you have a problem. If you want an electricity connection, you have a problem. So once you get out of that, you can finish China in no time. You can get that traffic diverted. China will be nowhere. The economy will in the state of collapse. So therefore, I think we need to balance that, but we have a huge advantage which even the Chinese don't have. You know, the agriculture, Indian agricultural research experimental plots produce 7 times the output per acre that the average farmer in India produces. Imagine what impact it will have. If you grow 3 crops a year, you will get triple the production. And we grow only in 25% of our land, we grow more than 1 crop. So the potential is enormous, so you integrate your industrial development with your thing and borrow technology liberally. I think that's the formula for economic renaissance.
This is a question for Rajiv Malhotra. What is your opinion about religious conversion?
Well, it's a whole book I wrote, Series 1, Breaking India, is on that theme, on how the conversion is being driven by foreigners. There is the Joshua Project, there is Gospel for Asia in Texas, there is the U.S. Commission on Religious Freedom, which is kind of, in a sense, they define religious freedom as the freedom to convert. So there's political forces, there is church forces, there's think tanks, there's academic people both in the U.S. and in Europe. Also, people feel that Europe is secular, not Christian. And they use that statistics to surmise that the United States is the same, but Europe and the United States are very different as far as Christianity is concerned. The United States is very Christian. And even within Europe, most people don't know, while domestically their Christianness has gone down, they're exporting Christianness, evangelism to other countries. Germany, Finland, Norway are exceedingly active through the Lutheran Church and other churches to evangelize in India and various places, even though domestically they are not becoming more atheistic or secular. So this is a threat that is accelerating, and what we show in that book is that they've gotten hold of the Dalits and really try to champion the Dalits and take a Christian Dalit thing out of it, separatist movement, and the Dravidian used to be a secular identity, started by Robert Cornwell and people like that less than 200 years ago. So we traced the whole history of how European scholars created a false identity, the Aryan-Dravidian divide, and this Dravidian identity has shifted from being just an ethnic, linguistic identity, then to an ethnic identity, racial identity. Now they've come up with Dravidian Christianity. So there's a Dravidian Christianity movement, and this Dravidian Christianity movement is also merging with and working together with the Dalit Christianity movement. So I see this as a very serious problem of fragmentation of India, hence the title of the book, Breaking India. The other two nexuses are the Islamic inroads into India and also the Maoists. So I see conversion as it's not about the way one worships. There's no problem with the teaching of Jesus. But my problem is with the institution of church, which is a power base, it's a multinational. It should be treated like a multinational, and it should be giving financial disclosures like any foreign multinational gives. And if you look at the branch office of, if you look at a McDonald's somewhere, McDonald's restaurant which has 20 employees, you don't think it's a minority establishment. You know it's part of a global empire, even though this one branch may be 20, but you look at it as part of the global empire. So similarly, if you see a Baptist church somewhere, it may have only 20 people, and you may think that this is a minority, but they're part of a multinational empire. So the churches are multinational organizations. And Vatican is not only an ordinary multinational, it's also a sovereign state. So if the Vatican is a sovereign state, member of the United Nations with its own independence, autonomy, and sovereignty, then every appointee is like a consul general, consulate. So it means every bishop since it's appointed by the Vatican, is also a consulate. And India should think of it that way. Now China has a different idea about religious freedom. They are saying that Christianity is welcome, but the church will be run by Chinese, and Chinese will appoint the bishop and not accept the appointment by the Vatican, because if a foreign headquarters is appointing the leaders, funding them, giving them their ideology, hiring, firing them, then you become an agent and a puppet of that foreign entity. And China does not want any interference. So they have changed their policy against religion. They used to be against religion. Now they are for made in China religion and controlled by Chinese people religion. And so it's a foreign link which they are against and not religion by itself. Even Buddhism, they don't want Dalai Lama because they feel that he's based in another country. But Buddhism, as Chinese local people are practicing, is okay. So I think India should say we are for all the religions in the world. And the issue is whether the minority has become co-opted by a foreign nexus and become a branch office of a foreign headquarters. The test should be whether or not they are really autonomous, governed from local means, funded from local means, local ideology, local interpretation, or whether they are controlled as a sort of subsidiary of a foreign entity. That's the position.
Thanks. There's a question there. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, you had the mic previously.
Point 8. Take risk and see the rewards and set an example for others. There's no use complaining. These are all inherited years and years of foreign rules that we have come to the stage where people are more keen on protecting what they have than risk losing whatever little they have. That's a mental state. It doesn't work. Any country in the world which has prospered is because the people took risk. So you take the risk, try to explain to your parents, but if they don't listen, do what you have to do. So I don't think that this is a Indian concept. Indians have always been of questioning mind. They've always done what they wanted to do. People have tried to, there's no concept of blasphemy in Hinduism. And that's because you gave the mind complete freedom to explore what you wanted to do. But I would say in brief that if you want to take risk, first learn about the 6 different intelligences that you must acquire. The cognitive, the emotional, the social, moral, spiritual, and ecological intelligences. If you imbibe that, you will not have problem taking risk and in the long run prosperity. You can't expect every time you take risk to succeed, but once you fail, get up and start again.
Next question is on SMS from Jairam, and this is Poonam could perhaps answer this. How do you ensure a free media in India?
I'm a media victim myself, so I don't know how to fight about it. But is it the question to you?
No, to you. You answer.
I'm not the right person, I guess, here. Actually, media, what I have seen before and after my father, has been an amusing issue for me. Maybe somewhere we go around. Media trial I have seen media trial, how it goes, how to fight it, but you can't fight it, sir. Somehow there should be some kind of a control to be working on. Media has helped with 2G spectrum, but it is not helping with my own issues. yes, media is, I mean, still I feel it's not like in England where media is coming out as paparazzi and living inside your life or inside your houses. But yes, it's a very important, grave situation. As being a politician, I do not want to talk so strongly against it. But I am a victim of media. There is some kind of...
2011, do you think it was your mistake to introduce him? And the second question, by when will EC, I assume that's Chidambaram, be arrested and what implications will it have?
Well, as far as Manmohan Singh is concerned, I've known him for a very, very long time. He may be 42 years. We were professors together at one stage. He was, of course, senior to me, he's older to me too. But in 1990, I became a minister. And very first day, I began the process of trying to see whether a blueprint for economic reform can be made ready. I was benefited by the fact that India was in an economic crisis, terrible economic crisis. So, plus the Soviet Union had begun to crumble, so the influence of the Soviet Union was very low. And third is the Mr. Chandrasekhar became Prime Minister because I played a role with Rajiv Gandhi to make him. So I had a lot of free hand to do many things because of the Prime Minister relationship I had. So when our government came, the first thing I did is look around for Manmohan Singh because he had been in the civil service, he knew economics well, he was a scholar, he was an honest man. And I found that he had migrated to Switzerland. He was living in Geneva as part of something called South-South Commission. We got him to the Prime Minister's office, phoned him and brought him back. And he became economic advisor to the government of India, which meant largely dealing with me. And of course he wanted Montek Singh to be made my Commerce Secretary, so I made him my Commerce Secretary. So the three of us interacted and prepared a blueprint. And we got it through the cabinet, but the moment it passed through cabinet, there was a quarrel between Rajiv Gandhi and Chandrasekhar. The government fell. And elections came, Narasimha Rao came. Narasimha Rao were also great friends. He invited me to join the government on one condition, that I would join Congress party. But I said, I'll never do that. Maybe I had a premonition that some Rakshasi is going to come, so my future will be, in the long run bleak if I joined it. So I didn't join. And then he made me chairman of the CAT commission with cabinet rank, so I was part of that government too in that sense. So let me say the blueprint was prepared by me. The guts to implement it was of Narasimha Rao and ably assisted in carrying it out administratively was of Manmohan Singh. In that role, Manmohan Singh is very good. But now as Prime Minister, he's still a very good man, still got good ideas, but they don't let him function. The reason I'm still supporting him is that if he goes, we'll get a moron as the Prime Minister. Even if he's a young chap, but still he's a moron. And therefore, if the whole UPA can be kicked out, that's fine. With that, Manmohan Singh can go. Manmohan Singh is in the same position as Bhishmacharya was in Mahabharata when he watched Draupadi being stripped. And he said, "Main vivashu, I mean, I am under constraint." And in the end, that is what Krishna told Arjuna. When Arjuna was hesitating, he told him that when a man hesitates, when a great moral question arises, then that person doesn't deserve to live in a war situation. And let elections come, we will target Manmohan Singh. But till that time, please don't disturb him, because what you will get will be much worse than what he is. The second question, I find near unanimity in Delhi that he should go to jail as quickly as possible. But I have only one complaint that I have received against it, and that is from the jail superintendent of TRJ, who told my friend that please tell Swamy, first he sends Raja, then Kanimori, then I hear that Maran is coming, then after that Chidambaram. My Bawarchi is getting very agitated. They are all asking for masala dosa and idli. And he doesn't know how to make it. So I said, tell him to be thankful. Soon some Italian will come and he'll have to make pizza. There are 3 offenses. Offense number 1, that this license, the spectrum license was given at 2001 prices. That was a joint decision between Raja and Chidambaram because 2003, when your dad was telecom minister, it was decided that this subject will be, this will be decided by 2 ministers, not by the cabinet. Finance minister and telecom minister. So the entire blame was put on Raja for fixing this price. But I found out from documents, which had been hidden by Mr. Chidambaram, but I know how to get documents out. I found that there are 4 meetings where Mr. Chidambaram very clearly comes out as the senior partner, telling Mr. Raja what he should do. So on that price fixing, he is as guilty as Raja. Number 2, then they have permitted 2 companies which are purely real estate companies, didn't have a single tower or any telecom equipment, Swan and Unitech, to sell out after getting the license, to sell this license de facto at 8 times the price they paid the government of India. I mean, you make a huge amount of money. There was a legal problem of lock-in period. And Mr. Chidambaram explained to Raja that don't allow them to sell the company, but let them issue enough new equity that they will get control of the company. And so by a roundabout route, it amounted to the same thing, and therefore Swan's license became Etisalat's, and Unitech's license became Telenor's. Third is that when Shivraj Patil was Home Minister, he had sent a big report to Chidambaram as Finance Minister that Etisalat and Telenor should not be allowed any business in India. Why? Because Etisalat is a front for Pakistan and ISI, and its man in India, who's in Bombay, was in Bombay now, of course he's a resident of Tihar, but he was in Bombay, Shahid Balwaz, is a right-hand man of Dawood Ibrahim. This is one objection. Second objection, that Telenor buys equipment from Chinese People's Army, and that can also be used for cyber warfare. In a war between India and China, they can put virus into our defense electronics and laptops. So they were blacklisted, but Mr. Chidambaram ignored it and told Raja, you can go ahead. So on the first, I have got independent documentation. On the third, I've got independent documentation. But the second one about selling thing, I didn't have. Finally, I went to the court and I found out that one file, which should have been in the court's hands, was actually being kept by the CBI. So for the first time in independent history, a private citizen was empowered by the court to receive a secret file from the CBI. And now, all three offences, I have proved it. And 3rd of December, I have to move a complaint to make Chidambaram a co-accused. And after that, TR is not far away.
I have a question. My question is for Dr. Swamy. Sir, we spoke about the Southeast Asian economy. My name is Ashish Jain. I am a managing speaker. So we spoke about the Southeast Asian economies. Now, consider the economies of South Korea, Hong Kong, Malaysia. Why after 20 years of liberalization, India has not been able to achieve the same status as these economies have achieved?
They began their market economy from 1965. And they went on growing and growing because the Americans gave them most nation favored clause, which meant the entire American market was open to them. Let me tell you, the Chinese would have not made this progress if the Americans had not opened their market to them. And had we not been a Soviet stooge, the Americans would open their market to us also. But the South Koreans, Japanese, all of them in 1997 had a major financial crisis because their financial system was not equal to the requirements of growth. No country can grow and stay growing unless its financial system is backing up that. It happened with Latin America. It was considered as the next set of developed countries. Now they are all in a mess because their financial system was not up to it. East Asian countries were considered miracle countries. Today they are all messed up and Japan is in a complete mess. So we should not repeat the same mistake. And we are beginning to do that. This participatory note about which I am going to speak about in the stock market today at I think 3 o'clock meeting. This participatory note is unbelievable that there is something called a participatory note which India has invented, by the way, one of India's great inventions. enable corrupt politicians to earn money on their secret bank accounts abroad. Because there was a complaint that if you deposit money in Switzerland banks, they don't give you interest. They instead charge you a service charge, 2%. And once you deposit, the Switzerland then goes and puts that money of yours in the American bond market and earns 4 more %. So Switzerland gets 6% doing no work at all. So therefore, to earn money on the money you're keeping abroad, this participatory note was invented, and that is destabilizing your stock market today, making it go up and down. And the chief architect of that, of course, is Mr. Chidambaram. So if I get him on one count, I will get him on 17 more counts after that.
There's one question which has come in on SMS. This is for Rajiv Malhotra. Can you please explain difference anxiety?
Well, chapter 1 of the book is called difference anxiety. And basically, I define a lot of terminology in my own vocabulary in this book. These are my original insights. One term is difference anxiety. This is the anxiety a person suffers if he feels different from somebody else. He's not comfortable that I'm different, somebody else is different. It could be genders, so somebody feels that we are of different genders. It could be religion, it could be race, it could be class. So difference anxiety is an anxiety that forces a person to either feel that I'm superior, I should convert him and make him like me. That's one resolution of difference anxiety. Or genocide people in order to eliminate the difference, or make slaves out of them in order to marginalize them and remove them, but not feel comfortable that I'm coexisting with people of difference. The other thing that can happen with difference anxiety is inferiority complex, which says my difference anxiety is because those guys are superior to me, so I'm going to mimic them. I'm going to mimic them in the way of thinking or in the way of style, body language, ideology, religion. So that's the mimicry from below. So difference anxiety can either be inferiority from above, pressuring others to become like you or getting rid of them, or difference anxiety can be inferiority complex from below, where you are trying to mimic somebody above. So I critique both kinds of difference anxiety, and I replace it with a concept called difference with respect. So I have difference with mutual respect, which means you are you, I am me, and I have no problem if you are different. I don't want you to think that there's something wrong celebrate that difference rather than having anxiety over it. Now, later chapters I explained that this comfort with difference comes to us very naturally because there is an underlying unity or Brahman that cannot be changed, that cannot be broken. So we do not have an anxiety that underneath there may be some problem, we have to stick things together artificially. We do not have to create a synthetic unity because we have a natural unity that cannot be broken. And only a system, this is what I argue, only a system built on the concept of Brahman can be free of difference anxiety.
China, they told me that one of the big surprise they got is that they were told in the 1950s that India is a conglomeration of states, it's not a one country, the British put it together, it will fall apart. And when the China attack took place, the whole nation rose as one. Above caste, above everything. In fact, women took off their gold from their bangles and so on and started donating to the national treasury. There was a huge show of national unity. And similarly, in 1977, in fact, people used to ask me, how will the emergency ever go? I never knew how it will go. But one day, the most unexpected thing happened. Mrs. Gandhi declared an election and she lost the election. But at that time, the people also rose as one. Above caste, above money, above threat, everything. And voted out. Even recently, I saw this in Tamil Nadu. Karunanidhi was giving every voter 6,000 rupees. That means the family of 5 would get 30,000 rupees. They took the money and voted against him. So, I think there are examples that the undercurrent of oneness in India is there. We have to now tap it to bring it to a larger purpose, where all the points that Rajiv Malhotra talked about, where gender equality, the ability to respect each other within the country, rising above caste on all important issues. Preferably caste is forgotten altogether. These are things which will come, they are coming. I don't think there is any need for fostering it. There are sophisticated ways of doing it. If you have a government, then you can ensure that this comes through the media, it comes through the cinema, it comes through, there's so many subtle ways of doing it. But I think we don't have an uphill task at all. It's already ready-made for you to take advantage of.
Okay, go ahead. Who is the question for? Please say.
Good afternoon. My name is Mungikar. I am a student of this the Welingkar Institute for doing the management course. My question is to Mr. Swamy and the other panelists.
I'll repeat it, don't worry, I'll repeat it.
So, my question is to all of you, sir, is what energy security we are going to have in India for the coming, say, 40 years or 50 years in reference to the present scenario, the present consumption of energy in India, that is per capita, the present stagnation which is going in US, European countries and China's way of progress in reference to nuclear energy.
I think point taken. Who can answer? Who would like to answer? I can answer.
Energy security means to protect the energy sources or to see that you get enough energy?
Availability of energy sources for consumption.
Yeah, availability.
Power, electricity.
There was a time when Malthus said that the population is growing at geometric proportion and land is, food is growing at arithmetic progression and ultimately we're going to have famines. What happened in the end? In the end, science and technology gave you such high yields that that Malthus proposition turned out to be false. Now here too, let me tell you, there are some inventions around the corner which may take another 10 years at the most, maybe 5 years, which will make energy system completely different. One is something called hydrogen fuel cells. The Americans have got the answer, but their oil companies are not allowing the American presidency to go through with it because they are all big losers. If hydrogen fuel cells come, then you won't need petrol to run your car. Similarly, in the case of India, I mean, of course, Indians also done a lot of research on hydrogen fuel cells, but we need to encourage them to do more and faster. 60% of the world's thorium is available in India. You can just scoop it from the sands of Kerala and Tamil Nadu. We are on the verge of breaking into the third and final cycle of the thorium cycle. There has been a delay because of the Indo-US nuclear deal. We have gone slow on these researches. But the day you do that, you will get tremendous access to energy. So I think new forms of energy will be found out, and you don't have to worry about the future. The future will take care of itself. Of course, today's problems are not got anything to do with shortage. Petrol prices can always be given to you at 2001 prices like Spectrum was given by Vadra. Because out of 76 rupees, 50 rupees is tax, including 3% of it, 3% tax on the petrol bill you have for education purposes, which is not used for education. It is used for meeting revenue expenditure. So I don't think that these are essential problems that there are planners, there are people who are thinking about it. There are NGOs who don't want us to succeed. See what has happened to Kulam. Kulam is a pure foreign inspired agitation to see that we don't become self-sufficient in nuclear energy. It is because the Russians are giving you the most modern technology, and the French are unhappy, the Americans are unhappy that we are going to get this without the safeguards which they want to impose on us, so that we can become an NPT type country. So all these things put together, these things you can see, but don't get carried away by it. We have now a country which has got enough capacity to have the energy security.
My question is basically, my name is Anchal, I'm first year FYPF. My question is open to everyone. In India, aren't we embroiled too much in party politics? Like before the entire 2G spectrum came, BJP was never fighting evidently against corruption. The moment 2G came up, we saw BJP everywhere. That's A. Secondly, we see Nitish Kumar doing immense work in Bihar. He is not affiliated to any of the prominent parties. Whereas Narendra Modi, who was spoken so much about today, although having done good for Gujarat, he was blamed for the riots and all, whereas Nitish Kumar right now has a clean chit.
I think let's keep it focused on the topic that is there.
What is the question?
Comment made.
So you prefer Nitish Kumar and she prefers Narendra Modi. That's what you're saying.
So all I'm saying is, aren't we too embroiled in politics and associated that? Shouldn't there be like an education qualification? Because Nitish Kumar has an engineering degree.
So does Modi.
The other has double graduation degree.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what I'm
And
asking.
Manmohan Singh has a PhD.
Let's keep the questions focused on the
And
topic.
Chidambaram has an MBA, which is used for you know what. And the more people participate in it, the cleaner and better it will be. Don't forget that both Mahabharata and Ramayana is actually a historical politics. The British created this atmosphere, leave politics out, because they didn't want a challenge to their rule in our country. And therefore, this controversial, don't be controversial, don't be political, all these have become part of an ATM. What you need, what you want is a more healthy intercourse, exchange in politics, where, as he says, with mutual respect, we are able to argue with each other.
Next question. Please go to the mic.
Hello.
Go ahead.
I'm Junaid Mehta, and I work in an advertising agency. My question is to you, sir. As a leader, you know, Manmohan Singh is a very honest man. But what's going on in his mind? Like as you said that Sonia, all Congress leaders wanted Sonia Gandhi as Prime Minister, but she couldn't because of obvious reasons. So do you think that Manmohan Singh should?
But not because she didn't want to become.
I know that. Yeah.
Not because of
So my question is basically what exactly is in Manmohan Singh's mind? If he is honest enough, he knows that he's completely failed as a leader. So is he being forced by Congress Party to stay on the top? Or like
can we skip the speculative political questions? Possible?
Well, I'll give you a short answer. Manmohan Singh is doing the nation the greatest favor by refusing to resign on Sonia Gandhi's request. So, in the last act, we can say that after all not doing what he should be doing, he's finally doing at least one thing passively, is refusing to resign to make way for a moron. That's what it is.
Here's a question that has come in for, I think, either Rajiv or Swamy can take it up. We have a history that wherever Hindus got into minority, that place, area cut out of India are always unstable and unpeaceful. What's your view on it?
Well, that is true. And in fact, earlier we talked about population growth being a good thing. What we did not mention is that it's not symmetrical across the different regions. There are different birth rates, and one Bajaj college studies has done extrapolation on what happens to different districts in India at various points in time. So this asymmetric, unequal growth rate is going to create polarization, because certain communities are going to be created as vote banks and against other communities. So this, I think this is going to create a problem. This demographic shift which is happening is going to create a problem. And the idea that Hindus become a minority, when Hindus become a minority, they're squeezed out, like in some of the northeast areas and Kashmir and I would say certain parts of Tamil Nadu, like Kanyakumari district, where my co-author is for Breaking India, is now a Christian majority. So many of the festivals they cannot have, many of they change the street names, they're changing the Hindus feel that they are under pressure in their own country. So I don't buy the argument that we are very safe, because we've been safe for 5,000 years. We often hear that, but I believe that even 2,000 years ago we were 5 times the size. We were from Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, all the way to Bali, and from Sri Lanka to not only Tibet, but many of the other Central Asian countries. And if you include Buddhism as part of our civilization, we were all over Asia. So we've shrunk to 10 or 20% of our size. And when you've shrunk so much because of religions that did not even exist 2,000 years ago, then you can hardly say that we are doing very well.
Yeah. Next question, please.
Good afternoon. I'm really proud my parents named me Swamy. I'm Swamy from Mumbai. Good afternoon, sir. I'm a good friend. People of all ages get inspiration from you. From where are you getting the inspiration?
I get inspiration from only one shloka of Gita. If you succeed, God is responsible. If you fail, God is responsible. Then you will never feel depressed, because you put the blame on God for success and failure.
Second, third, fourth.
Excuse me, please. Due to time constraints, last 2 questions, please. I'm sure all of you have a lot of questions, but we have time constraints, so please, last 2 questions.
I have a question.
You ask.
Okay, my question is to Sri Raju. My name is D.S. Devda, engineering by profession. Question is to Sri Raju Malhotra. By research and experience, Western scholars, researchers, they are understanding the truths about this Hindu identity. For example, Fridtjof Capra, then there is a Dr. Brian Weiss, who is a work upon reincarnation and all that. How far these Western masses or Western researchers are contributing to the thoughts of this being different?
Well, first of all, I don't want to put all Western guys in one box. All I can tell you is that the history of Indology, and I'm writing a big book on the Indology, German Indology, British Indology, French Indology, over the last 200 years had a huge impact on creating their own identity. German identity came about as a result of the study of Indology. And the British required Indology for their empire to run India and doctored a whole lot of Indian identity. And French needed it in order to compete against Germany. So the three rival powers in Europe actually used Indology as a tool for their own internal competition, and it has an effect on India. So first of all, the agendas were not because they love us, they're not studying Indology because they love us. All these 20 or 30 universities, programs were set up in England for Indology, and almost every major university in Europe between 1800 and 1850 had a huge center for Sanskrit studies. They downsized Latin and Greek and brought up Sanskrit. And then when they finished mining, finished extracting what they needed and appropriated it and just then called it their own and put it into their own framework, then they downsized it and discarded the source. Started discarding India as a source after they had taken the Jews. So it's a kind of you steal and then you burn down the place sort of thing happened. Many disciplines in Western thought have originated out of Indology, and I will explain that in this new book that I was working on. Now, as far as today is concerned, the term used is not Indology, but South Asian Studies. It's just the American equivalent of what Europeans used to call Indology. And South Asian Studies is filled with Indians, but they're not necessarily the right kind of Indians. So it's not only Western scholars like you mentioned, there's a large number of Indians, Marxists, leftists, these kind of people. And especially after the collapse of the Soviet Union, a lot of funding that used to come from Soviet Union in places like ANU and other leftist places stopped coming. And so these people were needing money. They went to America and they got jobs as professors. So most major centers with South Asian studies are filled with either Westerners who got a very westernized idea of India, either Christianized idea or some kind of a secular enlightenment idea, but they really don't appreciate Dharma on its own terms. Or they were Indians who are even worse. So that is the battle that I've been fighting for quite some time.
Last question.
By Gandhi, I'm a journalist. You talked about the problem you had in converting a single word tolerance to mutual trust. If that is the case, on what basis can you have interfaith dialogues? Because we have been in forefront of trying to bring in this interfaith dialogue. If there is a problem with a single word, on what basis are you going to do it and what results will it yield?
Okay. One of the objectives of writing being different, there's 5 or 3 of your objectives. One of the objectives is to teach Indians, including our own gurus, how to do interfaith dialogue on our own terms. What is the vocabulary we need to do, not only to defend ourselves, but to put the other side on the defensive in a very nice way, in a very diplomatic way, in a very academically sound way, and so on. So, how to engage the others on our own terms rather than let them engage on their terms. So, tolerance is a Western term. The origin of tolerance is that in Europe there was intolerance. The different kingdoms each had their own denomination of Christianity, which was required to be, everybody had to practice that particular denomination of Christianity. So if you did not practice it, you could be persecuted and so on. So there was a treaty declared between different kings in Europe that we will tolerate your brand of Christianity, you will tolerate our brand of Christianity. The problem that tolerance tried to solve was a problem we never had. We didn't have that kind of a problem in the Dharma traditions because we didn't create that kind of exclusivity. So tolerance is a word which has a whole baggage of European history with it. Similarly, the word secularism has a whole history to it. Similarly, translating Dharma as religion is a very serious problem. I have a whole chapter on why they're different and what problems are created when you do that. So one of the major devices, I'm explaining in this book, is there are about 20 or 25 Sanskrit categories which we should not translate. We should use those words, even while speaking English, we should use those particular words. Introduce them as part of the English language. We will be helping the world by bringing new ideas which are our own ideas. So if we do interfaith dialogue in those terms without translating them, we will be on a strong foundation. But one of my big markets, one of the big reader segments I'm trying to reach is our own gurus. Because these modern global gurus have actually do not have much knowledge about the West. They think that quick success by talking in the Western idiom is making them popular and making them very fashionable, but they're actually diluting and in some ways selling out our culture. So I'm actually also taking the gurus on task.
Thanks a lot. I think we'll end there. I'll just read out a couple of quick comments which have come on SMS, and then we'll have the word of thanks. So no answers here, but just what you all have sent in. We talk about Hindu pride, but we can't complete one task of acquiring Ayodhya land. First, Mr. Swamy, for Dr. Swamy, with your tirade against Gandhi, I was saying you feel very insecure. Either way is correct. What happens to the nation? And if wrong, you are guilty of scaring us. What is happening? Whether present form of democracy is suitable for present India to become a world power, whether the policies formed by the so-called economists, etc., can help curtail inflation, and how to fill the gap between India and Bharat mindset, etc. Thanks a lot. I think we had a great discussion, and I'm going to call upon Yomesh to give the word of thanks.
Before that, Friends of BJP is happy to announce that it is facilitating Friends of BJP is happy to announce that it is facilitating a research internship program for the students here. The research internship program would be with Infinity Foundation, which is